Hi there guys, welcome to Seasick Pirate Studios. Curtis here again with another painting tutorial. So last week on the Warhammer community page, Games Workshop announced that Dark Angels will be getting a new codex supplement for 9th edition 40k. So in this episode we're going to be painting some Dark Angels and helping you get your army ready for the new codex. So grab your paints, grab your brushes and let's get started. So here we have our primaris Space Marine. I've undercoated him with Chaos Black Spray from Citadel. Now because Dark Angels are a chapter of mystery and secrecy, we're going to be painting this Marine with dark colours to represent that. So black is a great base to start on. So for the first colour on the armour, we're going to give the model a base of Caliban green. So we've got some Caliban green on our palette just here. I'm just going to add a touch of water to thin it down. Make sure you always thin your paints down, guys. So we're just going to get some on the end of our brush there. And what we're going to do is apply this all over the model. So just start on the shoulder pad here. Now you'll notice it's going on quite translucent. So this is why we need a couple of coats to go over with. So just make sure you cover the entire model with this colour, so we can build up that green nice and solid. After 2 thin coats of Caliban green, we've got a nice solid base to work on. For the next step, we want to bring out all the joints between the armour plates. Usually I would just do an all over wash of Nuln oil or even a recess wash, but because we're working on a dark base coat, I don't want to make it even darker. So for this step, we're going to paint all the recesses and joints with Abaddon black. Now you'll need a fine detail brush for this, and you'll want to water down this colour. And what you want to do is just get some on the end of your fine detail brush. And you want to pick out all of those recesses and just paint those lines in like that. So we're not taking any of that edge off the green, because that is a nice solid Dark Angel green we've got there. And what you want to do is just make sure you get it in all the recesses. Now any mistakes you do make, you can just tidy up again with Caliban green. Now this step does take a while. You might end up pulling your hair out, but when it's finished, it'll look absolutely fantastic. So after applying Abaddon black to all of the armour joints and recesses, we've got nice definition on the armour without taking any edge off that green. So for the next step, we're going to edge highlight all of the armour with Warpstone Glow. So I've already got some on our palette here, and I've added a touch of water just to get a nice flowing texture to the paint. We just want to load some onto our brush here, and what we want to do is just pick out all of the edges on the armour and just paint lines down like that. After the first edge highlight has dried, we're now going to do a second edge highlight of Moot green. So we're only looking to do very thin lines of this over that first highlight. So we've got some on our palette here. Just going to get some on the end of our brush Now I have watered this down, so we've got a nice flowing consistency to the paint, and we're just looking to do very, very thin lines over the highlights that we've already done. So again, take your time, don't rush. Just try and get nice lines in there. To make that nice green armour look like it has nice shining edges. So after that edge highlight of Moot green, our armour's really standing out now and looking really cool. So for the next part, we're going to be painting all the metal parts on the model. So we're going to be painting all the joints in between the armour just here. We're going to be painting his plasma gun, we're going to be painting his robot arm, and we're going to be painting all the parts on the chainsword. So we're going to base these with Leadbelcher. So we've got some Leadbelcher on our palette. I've watered it down slightly. Just need to get some onto our brush. Now you just want to make sure you're very careful during this part, because you don't want to get any of that silver on that nice armour we've just painted. So just take your time and paint around all of these joints. Also on the robot arm as well, just give that a general cover up. There's a joint in the socket there as well. And for the chainsword, we're just going to paint all of the teeth. And we're going to paint this component at the back. So now that all the Leadbelcher is dried in all those places that we want to be metal, we're going to give those a wash with Nuln oil. So I've got some on our palette just here. We're going to get a relatively large brush. So I've got my Army Painter Regiment brush here, and what we're going to do is just paint this all over those areas to get some definition on the metal. Now again, watch for pooling, because you want a nice even consistency. Just put this all over these parts of the miniature. I have to say, these new primaris Space Marines are really, really nice to paint. They're also really cool looking models as well. So now the Nuln oil has dried all over our silver areas, we're going to be finishing them off with a highlight of Iron Hand Steel. So we've got some of this on our palette already. I've added a touch of water to water it down. We're using a fine detail brush here, and all we're going to be doing is just painting all these lines in here between the armour joints, just to give them a highlight. On the robot hand, we're going to be painting the knuckles, all these little bits in between. Just giving them a nice highlight. Now we're going to do the same on the weapons as well. So with the gun, we just want to edge highlight all the raised areas. And we want to do around the nozzle as well. So now that all the highlights on the metal areas are dried, they're all complete. So for the next step, we're going to be focusing on the chest eagle in the middle. Now for this, we're going to give it a base of Morghast bone. We're then going to give it a wash of skeleton horde contrast. And then we're going to highlight it with Ushabti bone to finish it off. So we've got some Morghast bone on our palette. Just going to load my brush up with that. Now you want to be very careful around here not to get any on the green. Just paint Morghast bone all over the area. Now we will need 2 thin coats of this colour just to get a nice solid finish. So after 2 thin layers of Morghast bone, we've got a nice solid colour to work on. So for the next step, we're going to be using contrast skeleton horde. So I've got some on our palette just here. We're just going to load some up onto our brush. And what you want to do is just paint this all over the chest eagle, all over the skull. And just make sure you get this paint into all of those detailed recesses. And just be careful of pooling as well. There we go, that looks nice and even. There we are. So we've also painted some of the skulls around the armour as well. So we've got one on the helmet just here. Just going to pop some of that over the helmet skull. We're going to pop this one over there, just to make those skulls really stand out and give them some definition. So now the contrast skeleton horde is dried, we're going to be finishing off these areas with a highlight of Ushabti bone. So we're going to get our fine detail brush. We've watered down some Ushabti bone on our palette. Now you want a fine point on your brush here. What you want to do is just highlight each of these feathers around the miniature. Now you might want to go over this once or twice, just to get a decent build up on the highlight. So after our highlight of Ushabti bone, our chest eagle, the skulls around the armour like the one on the helmet and the one on the gauntlet are all complete. So for the next step, we're going to move on to the ends of the weapons, so like the plasma gun and the chainsword here. So what we're going to do is we're going to base them with Mephiston red. So I've got some Mephiston red on our palette here. Now because we're painting on top of black, you might need 2 coats of this paint, and I've watered this down so we've got a nice texture to it. So all we're going to be doing is just painting the ends of the weapons like this. Just going to do the end of the chainsword as well. What am I going to do around here? So now the Mephiston red has dried all over the weapons, we're going to give them a recess shade of Agrax earthshade. So we've already got some of this on our palette. I'm just going to get some up with our detail brush, and we're just going to paint this into the recesses of all that red. Now if we do get some of that shade onto the flatter areas, we can always come back and tidy up with some more Mephiston red. So now that the Agrax earthshade is dried and I've gone round and tidied up with some Mephiston red, all we need to do now is highlight the weapons with Evil Sunz Scarlet. So we've got some on our palette. I'm just going to get some onto our brush. Now, just like what we did with the armour, we just want to do a line around all the edges of the red parts. So, just like with the gun here, just want to go around that line there. Just paint the other side as well. So now that we've highlighted all the red on the weapons, those parts are now complete. So the next part we're going to do is painting all the pouches and his belt. So what we're going to do for these parts is we're going to base them with Doombull brown. We're then going to give them a wash with Agrax earthshade, and then we're going to give them a highlight of Skrag brown. So we've got some Doombull brown on our palette. I've watered this down as well. And all we need to do is just go around, pick out all these pouches and just base them with this colour. Now you will need 2 thin coats of this colour. And just be careful not to get any of that green armour that we've already painted. Paint the holster as well. Now I'm using quite a small brush here, and that's just so I can maintain decent control in these areas. So now that the Doombull brown has dried all over the belt and the holster and all the little pouches, we're going to give these an all over wash of Agrax earthshade. So we're just going to load some up on our brush and we're just going to paint this all over those areas just to give them some shade. Now again, watch for pooling like always. And just be careful not to get any on that nice green armour. So now the wash has dried over all of those areas, we're now going to apply a highlight to finish these areas off. So we're going to use Skrag brown, and we've got some on our palette here. You want to get some on your brush with a nice point. What you want to do is just pick out all the edges, those brown areas. Just give them a highlight. So with all the brown parts on the model complete, that's our Dark Angel armour finished. I've gone around the model and finished all the details and painted the face. I'll be covering how to paint faces and plasma coils in future episodes. But for now, our Dark Angel is ready to fight for the honour of his chapter. If you enjoyed this video, please like and subscribe to the channel for more miniature painting content. Stay safe and thanks for watching.